Eagle shit on me.
It really pops out and it grows.
Get freaky.
All right. It is the Philly Experience podcast. It's T and I back at it talking sports. We tend to take a few weeks break in between each podcast, but that's how real life is now for us. We're jobs, we're working men now. T, you have a special announcement if you'd like to say it.
Oh, yeah. So, little family thing 2 weeks ago, in case anybody that doesn't know. My wife gave birth to a little girl. We named her Sophia. She's already an Eagles fan because I that's how I raised my children. We're not doing, no Cowboys fans. No, we're not doing no outside Eagles fandom. We are an Eagles family, and I'm establishing that from day one.
Hell yeah, T. Hell yeah. Congratulations, man. And we've always been saying how T's the old man, and he's proved it here with having a child. He created another human being. Max and I,
my wife created the human being,
Well, that is true. She gets all the credit in the world.
Yeah, she definitely gets the credit
for that. Definitely. And Max and I just graduate in college. We're not quite there yet. At least I'm not. I'm not ready for any of that, T. But you are
ridiculous.
You are the guy, T. You really are. You're our role model in a way of this podcast, I guess we can say, with you and getting into the sports, T.
I didn't think I would be in the position of a role model, but I definitely appreciate that.
I mean, don't take that to, don't let your head get too big. I'm only saying you're a role model because you're older than us. Getting into the sorry ass Philadelphia sports category that we have found ourselves in right now, with the 76ers getting eliminated in Game 7, Round 2 of the NBA playoffs. You have the Flyers, who basically aren't really a hockey team at this point in time. They're kind of debating whether or not they should be sold as an organization. You got the Philadelphia Eagles coming off a Super Bowl loss. I still have nightmares about it. Don't know about you, T. But they are getting better, and we'll get into that, and better in terms of adding pieces that they've really needed to add. And the Philadelphia Phillies are currently playing right now in terms of their season. They're not playing a game right now, but they are 20-23, fourth in the NL East. They're coming off a sweep right now, and that's why we're going to start with the Phillies, because they are our current team. They're the team that we're going to have to rep until September. That is when the Eagles start their season. They play tomorrow against the Chicago Cubs at 7 p.m. T. Have you been watching some of this Phillies? Now, you have the inconsistency that always follows the Philadelphia Phillies. They'll win by 14 one game. Next game, they'll get blown out. They'll win 3 games in a row. Then they'll lose 4 games in a row. That is the Philadelphia Phillies. That's the theme every season. Now they are without Rhys Hoskins. Hall, after stepping in for Rhys Hoskins, got injured. You have Harper finally coming back after that Tommy John's a very quick recovery for Bryce Harper off that Tommy John's. And you have players that just aren't stepping up. You have Castellanos, who, at the start of the season, you were like, okay, that every time you heard an announcer, broadcaster talk about Castellanos coming up to the plate, he's only going to get better with time. Next season's going to be his season. You see kind of flashes of that, but then, he's very inconsistent. And Bohm, he started off the season kind of hot, but now we're going into it's been like 43 games now in the season. So that was talk from the beginning of the season. When you look into the stats, T, now I'll let you go first and just talk before we bring in the stats. But what do you think about this Philadelphia Phillies team?
They're inconsistent.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. This has pretty much been the team's mantra for a couple years now. I think pretty much since I'm not blaming this on Bryce Harper, but ever since the signing of Bryce Harper, this has pretty much been the mantra of the team. You know, they start off slow. They're inconsistent to start. We're questioning the pitching. We're questioning, lineups and things of that nature. I mean, hell, just as a real quick side note, I'm even hearing, a couple of fans saying maybe Rob Thompson's not the guy. I don't think I'm ready to go there just yet, but
Wow.
there's already some whispers about that. But anyway, I mean, this has pretty much been the mantra of the Phillies for the past couple of seasons. And I mean, last season they pretty much did the same thing around this time. They started to get hot around August, September time, and then we all know the legendary run that they went on all the way to the World Series. I mean, the thing is though, and the thing that always has scared me is the fact that there's great teams in the National League, and for the Phillies to start off as slow as they are, that always bothers me. That always scares me because you already have two other powerhouses in your own division alone with the Braves and the Mets. So winning the division, getting into the playoffs, winning the division, that's damn near impossible. But now you're talking about, sneaking in and grabbing one of these wild card spots like they did last year. I mean, let's be honest here. I mean, last year was kind of sort of beginners. It was lucky. Honestly, like they just got really lucky and they got hot at the right time. And I
Yeah.
understand that's what baseball is all about, getting in and just starting to get hot. But you can't continue to rely on luck to get you through. That's just not it's not how it works, unfortunately. So at the end of
Yeah.
the day, this Phillies team, they got to start living up to the potential that we all saw them to be. I mean, we can't continue to have, days where we're questioning whether or not, to this day, we still question whether or not Aaron Nola's an ace. I feel like at this point we should already be past this conversation by now. I mean, Zach Wheeler started off slow. We're the pitching rotation is still a little bit in flux and a little inconsistent. It's just inconsistency all throughout. I mean, hell, Trey Turner's not even looking like the $300 million guy that the Phillies signed him to be. And that's a little scary too. So
Yeah.
it's just a little concerning that, I hope this team isn't relying on luck like they did last year to sneak themselves into the playoffs because they can't always rely on that.
Yeah. And listen, baseball teams around the league always talk about they just need to get in. You just need to get in to the playoffs, and then that's when it starts to pick up. And the Phillies got their break. They got into the playoffs, and it wasn't all luck. Really, the team rallied around each other, rallied under Thompson, and they just played the best baseball of the season when it mattered the most. And I don't mind that if that happens, but it's the right now that we're talking about. You need to get better so you can get into a better spot in the playoffs so you don't have to be playing those wild card games where it's, that's those 3 games. And, if you lose 2 of those, you're out, you're done. And for the Phillies to be playing the slower pace that they are, that's when people start to say, they did get lucky. And they aren't the playoff team that we thought that it could be this year with adding Trey Turner, who has a 262 batting average right now. But then we're talking about Castellanos, how inconsistent he is. He has a 304 batting average. That's not the problem. The problem is guys like Kyle Schwarber. I believe right now, or a few games ago, he had a 175 batting average. Kyle Schwarber. And listen, Bryce Harper coming off Tommy John surgery, he's already have a couple home runs. That's pretty impressive. But those guys are the cast, the top billed actors, to say on this team that need to produce. And when 1 or 2 of them aren't producing, this team falls apart. I mean, you have Bohm, you have Real Muto, Marsh, guys that can step up. Let me see if I can pull up. Schwarber has 10 home runs, but when he's not hitting home runs, he's striking out, swinging at balls in the dirt. That's it reminds me of the last few years of Ryan Howard over there. He was great when he was on, but when it wasn't his day, I mean, it was really a bad day for him.
It's ugly.
Uh, but T, you have Clemens stepping up for first base. I mean, I think Hall. I think maybe he should be returning in a month. I
Yeah, I
think.
believe so.
But it just seems like the Phillies need. You have Harrison and guys like that. The Phillies need another guy who use as utility. And I just think that every season the Phillies have that guy, that utility guy, like Bryson Stott. He's kind of just stepped up. He's now a starter. And it seems like rotation wise, Phillies get that extra piece that carries them to the playoffs. I think they'll be in better shape than next season. But it's the pitching, really, T. It's always the pitching, of course, that needs to improve.
And that's the pain in the ass part about the Phillies. I mean, how many years have we talked about? I mean, hell, since we really even started this podcast in the first place, from the early days back at Monco. How many years have we, how many times have we talked about how the pitching needs to improve? And it seems like this team, the upper management, has just doubled down on getting bats. Yeah, sure. When the bats work, they're the greatest team probably ever assembled. The problem is, though, you got to stop the opposing team from scoring. That's the whole point. That's also, an integral part of the game. And unfortunately, we're still getting inconsistencies from the bullpen. We're still getting inconsistencies from the starting rotation. Like I said before, Aaron Nola's on the last year of his contract. He had, some contract negotiations that broke down, and there was, a disconnect between what his team felt like, he deserved versus what the Phillies were offering. And for good reason. And it's times like this where, Aaron Nola just doesn't look his best. I mean, it's a shame that, like I said before, we are still having this discussion about whether or not, Aaron Nola's an ace. Like it's beginning to become very annoying at this point.
Yeah, and talk about like guys like Strom, who's he's got a 2.81 ERA. He's been all right, but like Walker 6.53, and other guys who it just aren't in. They're just not doing it, T. They're just not doing it. I don't know if it's because it is towards the beginning of the season ish, where it's everyone's trying to find their role. And things will pick up after the All-Star game. That's how it usually goes for baseball. This is kind of, when you head towards summer, it's the dog days of summer. It's things seem to be moving by very slow. But after that All-Star game, T, that's when teams start fitting into the playoff rosters, and they start showing what really what damage they can potentially do in the playoffs. But Ranger Suarez, let's check his ERA real quick. That's 6.75. Suarez. Zach Wheeler, 4.06. Aaron Nola. Let's see, 4.53. You typically want these guys 245. I'd be fine with. But it's just the Phillies. They have a long season ahead of them. They have plenty of games. They got plenty of time to adjust. Once again, that All-Star game. That's kind of where things start turning around. But it's not giving me a good feeling for this team to be under 500. They had to fight to get to 500. Everyone was happy for a day or two, and then it's just the inconsistency of the Phillies. See, maybe we shouldn't even be going there, because every season, last season, we had this same kind of conversation, and then they ended up making the playoffs. They made the World Series against all odds to us. And that was impressive. But is this just how the Phillies are going to be every season?
I hope not. But also remember a couple of years ago when we were talking about the same doggone thing, and that year they just didn't make the playoffs. They were right there.
Yeah.
They lost a few games that really cost them in the end. And that's the part that always consistently scares me the most about this team, where on paper, they look like they're good enough where they look like they can be world beaters. But unfortunately, we don't get that same result out of this team. And that's the frustrating part. Honestly, when you go back and you talk about this team, we know the potential that they have. We know how good they can be. The issue is they just don't live up to maybe our expectations are honestly too high, Tanner. Maybe that's it.
I think it definitely did fool us a little bit with this World Series run that they had last season, and it just felt like it was possible. It was possible for them to win the World Series, and then pitching. That's kind of what ended up happening. Is our pitching just kind of gave up, and Kyle Schwarber was the guy. I mean, the Phillies would be down, and he'd just put the ball right over the fence, and he'd bring them back in.
Yep.
And he really, he was that slugger. He was that guy in the playoffs. And you notice the guys who stepped up. Bryce Harper, he he's for the city. He stepped up when it mattered. And then that's kind of where we switched and we transitioned into a different sport here, T. A guy who did not step up when it mattered, who was the MVP of the league, and that's Joel Embiid. Philadelphia 76ers lost to the Boston Celtics in game 7 of round 2 of the NBA playoffs. Um, it wasn't the finish that, of course, makes us, kind of be excited to talk about the 76ers, T. It's a worse feeling than last year, just because they had 2 games to do it, T. They had 2 games to do it, and they lose 112 to 88. 88, T. How much did our MVP have? Do you ask? 15 points. That other guy with the long beard, he's a Hall of Famer in the league. He played for 40 minutes, T. 40 minutes. That maybe he got 20 points, maybe something like that, to complement the start. No, 9 points in 40 minutes, T. 9 points, 40 minutes.
It's you know what? It's so frustrating when the expectations for this team are always consistently. We just talked about it with the Phillies, but this team had high expectations, year in and year out. We think that, is this finally going to be the year that the 76ers get over that
No.
hump, break that
And
glass
it did not feel like that season. Let me be real. For me personally, it did not feel like that season for the Sixers. But the fact that they were in round 2 and they were making it competitive, they stole game 1. They stole game 1,
They
and they teased us. They
Yes.
teased us. They showed who they really were. The way they played in that game 2 was the same way as they played in this game 7. That wasn't a hoax. That was how they usually how they proved to be. And maybe you look at the stats of Embiid and Harden. Oh, maybe it was a defensive game. Maybe it was a low scoring game because it was 112 to 88. No, yeah, well, for the Sixers it was. But when you go to Tatum, 51 points. 51 points for Jason Tatum in a game where it mattered. It mattered. He had to show out for that game. And Brown, 25 points. The Sixers came out and played this game like they had another game to play. See, they played this game as if they were resting their starters for the next game.
It's so funny that you're saying that because I just go back and remember game 6 where Tatum couldn't throw the ball into an ocean. And I'm sitting here going, and the Sixers had the lead in the 4th quarter, and I'm sitting there going, oh my God, they're finally going to do it. They're finally going to break through the seal. And I'm saying to myself, if they don't beat this team here in game 6, there's no way in hell you can. First off, there's no way in hell they're going to win game 7. Number 2, there's no way in hell you're going to have another poor game like this out of Jason Tatum. It's just not going to happen.
No.
And what happened? Celtics forced a game 7. And Jason Tatum in that 3rd quarter just goes completely out of his mind, puts the Celtics on his back, and doesn't look back. And the pitiful part about that entire game 7 was the simple fact that the Sixers superstars quit. They quit. That's the frustrating part out of this entire thing. Joel Embiid quit. James Harden was a turnover machine. Couldn't hit a bucket, but kept thinking he was vintage Houston Rockets James Harden. Tyrese Maxey couldn't really see the ball. Tobias Harris was actually having a decent game in Game 7. Couldn't get the ball. PJ Tucker out there hustling. Everybody was out there hustling. But the main two guys who need to step up, the main two guys who should have put the Sixers on their backs, failed this team. And for me, that's the most frustrating part about the end of this season. I mean, and for me, I've defended Joel Embiid on countless occasions. I've defended Embiid on WIP from people that say, oh, Embiid's no good. You ought to trade him. You can't build a team around a big man. I've defended Embiid year in and year out, time after time again. I can't defend him in this situation. He did not step up when the 76ers needed him the most. I can't defend a guy who won't put it all out there on the line. I understand that Embiid might have been hurt, but I'm sorry, dude. You're the franchise player of this team. And you just can't use injuries anymore as an excuse. You just can't. And that's another thing also. I know it's circumstance, and it's just who Joel Embiid is, but it just seems like he always gets hurt at the wrong damn time. Sixers can't afford him to get hurt in the playoffs. And it's crazy that they didn't even play Game 1 with him, and they stole Game 1.
Yeah. And you know what? James Harden said at the end of the Game 1, he made all the players go back into the locker room. He said, it's just one game. It's just one game. He was right about that. Did he know he was going to play so terribly in Game 7? Definitely not. I mean, he brought, it is frustrating and I've never so quickly wanted to put a player's poster on my wall like Joel Embiid and then tear it down immediately right after that, because he goes from, top of the world, winning MVP. You're like, finally, as a Philadelphia fan, finally, Joel Embiid, he gets his roses. He finally, and then that.
Does nothing with it. Doesn't even play like an MVP. Doesn't even look closely, remotely anything like the past MVPs. I mean, it's a damn shame. It's sad. You did all that work just to become the MVP, and it just looked like you gave up. Was that really all you were chasing, Joel? I hope not.
Conference final as an MVP.
I really truly hope that's not the main thing that you were chasing after this year. Because if it was, then I need to be on the boat with everybody else that's saying that you need to be shipped out.
Yeah. How about just him saying earlier in the season before the votings that, the MVP doesn't matter, blah, blah. And then he kind of backtracked on that when he kind of thought, oh, maybe, the writers are going to say, okay, then we're not going to vote you in. And then he said how important it was to him and all that stuff. The MVP really did matter to him. It was on his mind the whole time. And I thought after winning that, he would finally just look ahead to that, to that finals, to wanting to get there and wanting to get the more important trophy out of the two.
It's frustrating. And also everybody kept saying that this team was different. I was one of only few people that came into the season. I was like, it's the same team from last year, same team from previous years. I don't see them going anywhere.
It was the same team. What? Just because they add Melton, now we're all like, oh, this is going to be a better team.
Oh, we added PJ Tucker to the starting lineup. Yeah. He didn't come alive until the playoffs. It's like you gave a 37-year-old a 3-year contract. Like, come on now. Like, this is still the same team from previous years past. Like, unless Tyrese Maxey would have made a huge step, which he took a step up, but it wasn't a huge step that was necessary, in order for them to get past the second round. But it's just now we're sitting here. It's the off season. They already, fired Doc Rivers.
Yes, yeah, and we'll get into that.
So now
let's get into it right now, T.
So now, where does the team go from here? So I knew somebody was going to catch the heat. Somebody was going to fall by the sword, and it had to be Doc Rivers. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Doc Rivers. There's plenty of former players that's played under him that's said that he's not really a good coach, especially in game crunch time game situations. We've seen plenty of examples of that. Here at with his tenure as the Sixers, it's I'm not saying it's his fault. It's partly his fault, but it's not all his fault. I wouldn't put the majority of the blame this season on him. It was honestly the superstars that really failed this team. I don't know how you feel about that, but that's how I feel.
So when we think about Doc Rivers, and when I go back into why people did not like Doc Rivers as a coach, that was his game planning. And it did seem to get it did seem to get better in the playoffs. I mean, they just flew past the Nets, swept them, and they had all this time to prepare and wait for their next opponent, which was the Celtics. And we knew it was going to be a challenging matchup. But with how they came out in game one, they put the game around James Harden, and he did his thing. But you knew that wasn't going to be every game. So then they made Doc Rivers made Maxey the ball handler, able to get Harden to do his thing off the ball. And Maxey kind of Maxey's fast-paced player. And then when Joel Embiid was back in that second game, first of all, should they have brought him back in that second game? I don't know. I mean, it did give him time to sort of adjust to NBA games again. But I just think that this wasn't Doc Rivers' fault. It was Doc Rivers isn't putting on the sneakers. He's not wearing the jersey. He's not out there actually playing. These are grown men that ultimately will make their own decision at this point. I mean, James Harden is a Hall of Famer. He's going to do what he wants to do at the end of the day, honestly. And if he didn't, what these reports are saying, if he didn't respect Doc Rivers as much, maybe that was one of the reasons why the Sixers didn't get out of this round two. But it falls on James Harden and Joel Embiid, not Doc Rivers.
Yep. At the end of the day, I totally 1,000% agree with you. And even if he didn't respect Doc Rivers, then we have a serious issue on our hands, because now the question becomes, okay, are we starting to listen to James Harden, or are we going to be continue to listen to Joel Embiid? Because if we're stuck between the two superstars and who we should listen to, we should probably listen to Joel Embiid a little bit more, and only because of his youth. James Harden is past his prime. James Harden isn't the same Houston Rockets James Harden that was hitting those step back threes and whatnot, and driving to the hoop. When he does drive to the hoop, now that shot gets blocked. He isn't the same James Harden anymore. You can't build a team around James Harden anymore. James Harden really is just another. He's another piece for a team. He's not the guy.
The Sixers can't get it straight because we look back to the James Butler era with the Sixers that could have changed the whole future of this organization. But instead, the Sixers decided to listen to the coach and a player who would ultimately be out in the next few years, in Ben Simmons, where it was Jimmy Butler basically against the former coach of the 76ers. And they decided to go with the coach instead of a star that was best friends with their other star, Joel Embiid. Instead of focusing on the players on the court who play the game. And a coach who's – why am I blanking on his name? Brett Brown.
Yeah, there you go.
Instead of going with the players. After years of Brett Brown, he went through the process. They hadn't really gotten to the great – you look at the Kawhi shot, okay, that was Brett Brown. But after all those years, you still go with a coach who hasn't really gotten to the next step, rather than going with the star who definitely can make your team go farther. I mean, he's a dog. Jimmy Butler is a dog, and he's now have the chance to take his team back to the finals with the Miami Heat.
You know what, Tanner? As soon as I pull it up, I'll take it even a step further than that, because I hear you. I hear the reason, how far you're willing to go back. I'll go back even farther than that, to be honest with you. I blame, honestly, all of this honestly stems from the upper management not doing their job and not drafting the correct players that were supposed to be drafted in years past. And unfortunately now it has come back and it has bit the Sixers in the ass. And it's really a shame. And you know what? I'm going to go back starting from 2015 when
Right.
the Sixers were still in the midst of the process. We're going to go through the players that got drafted.
Well, so Joel Embiid gets drafted in 2014. You're going, what happens after?
You're right. I'm going what happens after in 2015. So in 2015, the Sixers, they had a chance to draft Devin Booker, but instead they drafted Jahlil Okafor. Jahlil Okafor was only in the league for a couple of years. He had a little bit of offensive game, and his defensive game stunk. All right, he sucked. Let's be honest here. All right, 2016. Oh, look who they did. Look who they drafted first overall. They had the first overall pick, which means they had the pick of the litter. They picked Ben frickin' Simmons, who couldn't and refused to shoot a damn jump shot. Who did the Boston Celtics pick third overall? Oh, the guy that scored 25 points on their ass. Jaylen Brown. 2017.
This is painful. This is...
I know it's painful. Oh, 2017, they picked Markelle Fultz first overall. They had 2 straight years of first overall picks, and they got them both wrong. Markelle Fultz was drafted number 1 overall. Boston Celtics drafted number 3 again. Who did they pick? The guy that scored 51 damn points. Jason freaking Tatum. And I pounded the table that year for Jason Tatum.
Colangelo, he traded for that pick that would become, Jason Tatum, and the right to draft Markelle Fultz instead. So that's, I mean, this kind of is like the Eagles talk with us a little bit, T.
Oh, I'm not finished, Tanner. I got one more for you, just to make it a little bit more painful and to twist that knife in just a little bit more. 2018, they actually got it right. They drafted Mikal Bridges.
Yeah.
They traded him for Jalen Suggs, who doesn't even play.
I don't even know who that is.
Doesn't even play. They have drafted horribly over the years, and it has come back to finally bite them in the ass when they're getting beat by the same damn draft picks that they had a chance to draft. The Sixers swore up and down that they were building a damn core. And what they've been doing, they've just been reverting the damn process. That's what they've been doing, honestly.
Yeah, when they drafted Bridges, they traded to instead get Smith instead. I believe that was kind of what happened with that. But I do remember some folks at Villanova being really excited, and then just like that, he's not coming home. He's not coming to his city anymore. He's going to Phoenix, warmer conditions. But you really thought that the Sixers had it figured out at that point. But then, obviously you can't predict how these guys are actually going to turn out in the NBA, but it just seems it never goes in the direction of the Sixers after Joel Embiid. And would you say Ben Simmons was how would you describe the Ben Simmons pick? Would you say a disappointment in the draft, or he just became a disappointment?
He was a disappointment even before. So it was a disappointment in the draft pick ultimately, because he came out of LSU with question marks. As a matter of fact, I remember one scout vividly saying, look, this guy's got all the talent in the world. He can easily become the greatest NBA player to ever live. to ever live. That's what a lot of scouts said. But then there were a few scouts that actually picked up and said, hey, look, he's a selfish player. He's all about him. If he doesn't have the right camp around him, like he's not going to develop his talent. He listens to the people around him that tells him how great he is. And the unfortunate part about it is the Sixers upper management at the time got caught up in the hype of they thought they were getting a once-in-a-generational player. I remember the headlines. Everybody thought that Ben Simmons was a once-in-a-generational talent. He did have he had the potential to have the once-in-a-generational talent had he decided to apply himself and work on that talent. But he settled on for what he did best and what made him who he was instead of developing that talent, instead of developing that jump shot, instead of being a whole lot more consistent at the free throw line. Of all things to be bad at, free throws ought to be one of the last things you need to be bad at.
Or if you're bad at them, I mean, the rest of your game got to be
top. Yes, I agree. And he didn't play like Shaq though. He did not play like Shaq for his free throw percentage to be as bad as it was. I mean, hell, it's an uncontested shot. Take 500 of those some bitches when you in the gym every day until you get better.
No, he's too busy taking pictures of his car, taking his girlfriends out to tennis matches. He was too busy, too involved in his image, his public image. That's to me, that's what ultimately took down Ben Simmons. He just didn't want to play basketball anymore. I mean, whatever. He's on the Nets and he's taking pictures of his TV with his legs wrapped in a blanket of the Sixers getting blown out. Whatever. Did he forget that the Sixers swept his team in the round previous? Well, why is he even talking? He's not even playing basketball as a starter anymore.
Forget just playing basketball as a starter. He's not playing basketball, period.
Yeah.
The Nets traded away every single last one of their superstars. And Ben Simmons couldn't even sniff the court. It wasn't because of injury. It was just because he was that bad.
Oh, it's mental. It's something with his back. It's something every few times that this injury report comes out with Ben Simmons. But we're talking about a Bleacher Report from yesterday, a reporting with Harden. He's planning on declining that $35.6 million option to become a free agent, and wants to secure a long-term deal somewhere else. Do you think he's returning to the Rockets? You think Embiid's going to convince him to stay? In his press conference or an interview shortly after that Game 7 ended, he said, it's just their first year together, Joel Embiid and James Harden. It's just their first year playing, and they got to where they are now. Do you think he's going to return? I mean, he's quoted as he wants the basketball freedom to be himself.
That ultimately sounds, based off of that quote that you just last said, that to me sounds like he wants to be the man, and he's not going to be the man in Philadelphia.
He's too old.
It's just not going to happen.
Too old to be the man anymore.
I also don't find it a coincidence that he's declined his player option. And there was rumors during the course of the season that stated that James Harden was going to return back to Houston. I don't find that a coincidence. I truly don't. So if he goes, good. Because to be honest with you, I think James Harden was holding this team back in a couple of ways. He was holding back Maxi's development because Maxi is a player that needs the ball in his hands. Maxi is a guy that can push the tempo of the team and can really drive by guys and get easy shots in the paint. But he can't get those shots in if James Harden is hogging the ball. You can run the offense through Maxi, honestly. I don't think though you can just get away with having a team of Maxi, Embiid, and Tobias Harris. I do think you're going to need somebody else up in here. You're going to need to trade for somebody. I don't know who that somebody is. A lot of people are clamoring for Damian Lillard, though he's on record as
Yeah, okay.
he's not leaving Portland. So I don't know how the hell you're going to convince him
Well,
to trade
for
him.
Damian Lillard, he didn't want to be a part of the rebuild in Portland. That's his thing. And it looks like they might start that rebuild. That they got a pretty high draft pick, I believe. If I can check, I believe it's top 5. But yeah, that was his thing. He didn't want to be a part of
Rebuild.
their rebuild process because he's stuck with that team.
Right.
And they received the number 3 overall selection this year. And does that say that the rebuild is to come? I think so.
Yeah, I think so as well. So maybe they can somehow with some way snag a Damian Lillard.
I just don't think that's going to happen.
I don't see them necessarily having the pieces necessary to acquire a Damian Lillard. I don't see it. I mean, what do you want to do? Give them draft picks, maybe, but I just don't see it.
Yeah. Listen, if I'm James Harden right now, I'm staying with the Philadelphia 76ers because at this point in my career, I just need a ring, really. You're a Hall of Famer, and you just want that ring, and that solidifies your career. I mean, his career is already going to be solidified in terms of greatness, that the stats he put up. But that ring, when we talk about great players who haven't had a ring, we're always saying, but he didn't get the ring.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. James Harden stays with the 76ers. He's got Joel Embiid. He's got Tyrese Maxey. You get rid of PJ Tucker somehow, some way. You even probably get rid of, although he did step up, Tobias Harris. Because if you replace those two with just one other star, like a Damian Lillard, and you already have Tyrese Maxey, you got he got Niang. Okay, fine, whatever. That's a YMCA kind of guy to me. I mean, he does great beyond the arc. So, he does have those clutch shots, but it's kind of building up the bench after there. And if you're James Harden, you want to take money that makes the team able to make those decisions. Even Joel Embiid at this point, I think they should be thinking of the team as a whole. Joel Embiid, you already won MVP. What's next? A finals, at least a finals appearance, for Pete's sake. I mean, this is, to me, I think they should be thinking about the team more, and it's unfortunately not what probably will happen. But if you bring in that third star and you develop Tyrese Maxey, I mean, this team has made it to the round 2, forced a game 7. Well, they didn't force the game 7. They should have got it done in game 6. The Celtics forced game 7. And they were just a defensive piece away. A defensive piece and a star player, because you have Joel Embiid 15 points, James Harden 9 points when it mattered. You bring in that star, he can produce both on offense and defense. I'm not really that familiar with Damian Lillard's defensive game, but I'm pretty sure he can do a little bit better job of, let's say, James Harden.
Oh, yeah. God, yes.
I wouldn't say Ben Simmons, because Ben Simmons was a good defensive player.
No, I'll
but
give
then
him.
Again, on the other side of the ball, if you have Ben Simmons in there when James Harden's putting up 9 and Joel's putting up 15, then you're in the same position.
Yeah. My thing is, like, my whole thing is, how in the world are they going to get another superstar talent to come here, and with what assets? I mean, who are you going to trade away? Tobias Harris? It's not too many teams that's going to be stupid enough and willing enough to take on that contract, and they know the type of production that Tobias Harris is going to put up. I mean, let's be honest here. Tobias Harris isn't a guy that intimidates guys day in and day out.
Yeah, I'm surprised he still has been on this team for, I didn't think he was going to be on the team for that long, but he's made Philadelphia his home. And I don't, he did step up in the playoffs. He did.
Yes, he did.
He had a great series against the Nets, and he finally did step up against the Celtics.
He did a pretty good job with Tatum a couple games. He did.
Yeah. It's just, it's really puzzling where we see the Sixers team, but let's transition to our Philadelphia Eagles. All right. The team that really puts a smile on your face still, even though they did lose the Super Bowl. When we think about the Philadelphia Eagles after it's been a while since watching them, I mean, it just brings so much excitement to you because, I mean, you can see I got Eagles decorations all over my room.
Anybody that saw the going home pictures of my daughter, she came home in an Eagles outfit that said Eagles fan like daddy. So yes, I
That's
agree
great.
with
Yeah. At the end of the day, it's the Eagles above all these other teams. For me and you, I believe. I think Max maybe Phillies
you.
guy over the Eagles, but it's Eagles for me. And let's discuss their draft a little bit. We don't want to talk too much about it since it was so long ago at this point, but um, just talking about the names and the youth that we've brought into this Eagles team. It's what, over maybe 2.5 weeks or so,
Yes,
3 weeks since the draft. Um, many gave the Eagles an A+ in this draft. A lot of broadcasters, some scouts, stuff like that. They've looked at the Eagles draft and they've given them an A+ on different platforms. Yeah, let's review the rookies and the acquisitions that this team's made. Round 1, pick 9. They traded up with the Bears. You knew maybe there would be a trade up, but it's just a one pick above from where they would have been, and that's drafting defensive tackle Jalen Carter. Now, the running Bijan off the board.
Yeah.
I didn't think the Eagles should really go running back, given that it's a run by committee over here in Philadelphia. They get Penny, they got Boston Scott, they got Gainwell, they got those guys. I didn't think drafting another young running back would be the move, so they get Carter. Controversial, sort of how that's been handled with not how it's been handled, but what's happened with him. With what he's been involved in. But you have those older veterans in the locker room. You hope the Eagles can really, set them straight. And from here on out, the 30th pick in the draft, they steal Nolan Smith. They steal him. Georgia guy, Jalen Carter, Georgia guy. Reunite those teammates that have been championship caliber, players for their time in New England. Yeah, and they certainly did bring winners in. That wasn't a problem. Round 2, 65th from Houston, Tyler Steen. Tia, I see a little bit of a smirk from you. We'll get back into Steen as a player. Round 3, 66th, Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown, and that was from the Cards, the tampering case that they had. They got that trade pick for better, 66th. 105th overall, Ringo, cornerback. They got their cornerback. I wanted them to get a cornerback. I also am glad they got that linebacker in the first round. This guy, who has probably the best name in the draft, 188th overall, Tanner McKee from Stanford. I understand you're just adding quarterback depth at this point. I'm not offended at all with Jalen Hurts, blah blah blah. Okay, this guy, come on, he's not going to be a starter.
No,
Let's be honest here. They're just complaining just to complain. Round 7 from the Lions, Ojomo from Texas, defensive tackle. 3 of these guys are from Georgia. Steen was from Bama, Brown from Illinois, and you have, Ojomo, Texas, McKee, Stanford. But they got Smith, Carter from Georgia. And, yeah, they added a running back, not in terms of drafting, but in terms of trading from the Lions, DeAndre Swift, who comes back home. And he joins the Philadelphia Eagles. It was rumors talked about when the Lions made that head-scratching draft pick. Like, hold on, wait, what about DeAndre Swift? Only, 3-year running back. What's up with him? But then they traded DeAndre Swift away, and they gave him to the Philadelphia Eagles. I believe Swift went to, St. Joe's High School?
Yep.
He ran track with my buddy, and T, I know you might be familiar with him as well. But 521 yards, 8 touchdowns in 2020. 617 yards, 5 touchdowns in 2021, 542 yards, 5 touchdowns in 2022. Now, not the most amazing stats, but in those 3 seasons, 1,198 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns through the air. So, you got a player in DeAndre Swift. What's to lose? With what they gave for DeAndre Swift. What do you think about all this? First of all, you can talk about the draft, and then we can get back into DeAndre Swift.
So I'm gonna get into a little bit in the draft. I mean, yeah, it's hard not
Yeah.
to give the Philadelphia Eagles an A+. I mean, to draft Jalen Carter at number 9 overall. I mean, there was rumors that even with the incident that happened down there in Georgia, that this guy was supposed to be drafted. He wasn't gonna get out of the top 5. Like most mock drafts did not have him sliding out of the top 5. So the fact that Howie Roseman got him at 9 is definitely, it's a huge accomplishment. He's going to come in. He's basically going to learn from Fletcher Cox, and eventually he's going to replace Fletcher Cox on that defensive line, which is something that we've been talking about for years. Because Fletcher Cox isn't the same Fletcher Cox as we once knew before, and Jalen Carter can basically, when Fletcher Cox time is done, he just slide in and just take his spot. And Tyler Green is just a mauler. I mean, this guy's 6'6", 330 plus pounds. The guy's just an outright animal. Now he played tackle, but but because of his arms, they're projecting him to play guard. So he's basically I know they're saying that he's going to compete for the right guard spot. I'm probably going to slate him as the right guard. I don't see a scenario where they want Cam Jurgens playing right guard because they want him to prepare to take over for Kelsey when Kelsey's time is done. Ringo is a future corner in the making. Here's the crazy part with the corners. So it's crazy when you think about it. They picked up Greedy Williams in free agency, and he was his former second round pick from the Browns, and he's only about 22, 23 years old. And both Bradbury and Slay are under 2-year contracts, technically 1-year contracts, but full 2-year contracts. The crazy part is by the time those contracts are up, Greedy Williams is going to be 25 years old and Ringo's going to be 23 years old. You're going to have 2 young, tall corners, slated and ready to play the outside. Howie Roseman set that up perfectly, for the future. Now let's get to the trade. Okay, I'll admit I was one of the people that wanted Bijan Robinson. I'll admit, because I just thought it would be really cool that instead of a running back going to a bad team, he would go. Yeah. Bijan Robinson would go to a team that's already stacked on offense, and he would just make an already great offense just absolutely dominant.
Yeah, and I did also think on draft night, watching the draft, the red carpet and stuff, his mom came out wearing Eagles colors. I mean, come on. You thought maybe it was going to happen.
Right. You honestly, it's hard not to think about, that's not happening. But, it didn't happen. The Falcons drafted him. I just talked about bad teams drafting running backs. So that didn't happen. But so in the back of my mind, my focus went to Jahmyr Gibbs. I said, okay, I'll take Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs is a home run hitter. The Lions picked Jahmyr Gibbs. I think it was 12th overall. And I'm just sitting here going, that's a dumbass pick. That was literally my initial train of thought. I'm like, the Lions need so much other pressing needs, but you spend your first round pick on a running back that you probably could have drafted. You could have traded down for, probably could have traded up in the second round to get. But you draft him number 12 overall. That's just dumb. And then I immediately thought about it. I'm like, why would you draft Jahmyr Gibbs if you still have DeAndre Swift? And I'm like, my first thought process was, oh, okay, so y'all gonna trade DeAndre. There was no rumor that needed to come out. I automatically knew. I'm like, yeah, DeAndre's gonna get traded. I don't know to who, but DeAndre's gonna be traded. And I'm sitting here myself. It'd be real crazy if DeAndre came home. It'd be real crazy, DeAndre. Tanner, I'm gonna tell you exactly how it went down. It was Saturday. It was day 3 of the draft, and I was working for WIP. I was on site at Parks Casino, with Go Bird Pod, James Elliott. James Seltzer, Elliott Shore Parks. So I'm the engineer guy, but I also keep Twitter open just in case any Eagles news breaks. The news immediately came across my feed from Ian Rappaport, and I'm looking because they took away the check marks on Twitter, so now you got to confirm.
Yeah.
So I'm making sure that this is Ian Rappaport's like real Twitter account. I'm like, no way this is true. No way this is true. Sure enough, he came home. I got the news immediately, and I'm tapping James. I'm wearing James Seltzer's arm out. I'm like, dude, you got to see this. You got to say something right now. Say something right now, before anybody else says something. It was a really cool moment. I'm really glad that the kid's coming home. Little known fact, me and DeAndre we did grow up childhood friends. We grew up on the same block, so I've watched him grow into the young man that he is. The Eagles are definitely getting an awesome young man. They're getting a hardworking young man. And Tanner, you mentioned his stats. His stats are like that because they've pretty much always kept a running back in front of him. Like I know in previous years they've favored Jamal Williams more than they did him. I do remember him though killing the Eagles that week 1 for over 140 yards just by himself on the ground. So the kid's a home run hitter. The kid just never had an opportunity to be the main feature back. Well, here he has that chance. And I think you're getting a dog. Not just a
And
Georgia.
you're not losing much either. Let's get into it. The Lions traded Swift in the 7th round to the Birds for the 2023 7th round and a 25th, and a 5th, I think, 5th round. But Sanders, when we're talking about players who we've lost, and Miles Sanders, he got 4 years, $25 million from the Panthers. Penny and Swift will both be getting combined less than $3 million.
Yep.
And save $10 million. The Birds will save $10 million for not resigning Sanders.
You're not even counting Kenny Gainwell and Boston Scott's contract in that either, which is crazy.
Right. And will it pay off? We don't know yet, but either way, it should be. I won't say worth it because obviously worth it would be for these guys to be very successful, but the damage it'll be very low with a rate of damage.
Very.
Yeah,
and
I'm excited.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard not to be excited. I mean, Howie Roseman did his thing, and Howie does it again. Howie does it again, and ultimately, I know safety is still a main concern on the team. I mean, we talked about safety being a main concern last year, and he went out and traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson during the preseason. So whatever happens, I definitely have faith in Howie Roseman. I just do. And a real quick side note, I did listen to Deshaun Desai's press conference, the new Eagles defensive coordinator.
That's right.
I was listening to his press conference, and I literally wanted to call my mom up and say, "Mom, from my pads, the Eagles just recruited me to play." It was that inspiration, ready to go. I said, "Dad, Mom, from my pads, from my cleats, I'm getting recruited. Let's go."
Some Vince Papale action going on in T's head.
Oh, right. I was ready to go.
That's amazing. All right, T, let's get into the schedule. All right, the schedule dropped. We gave it some time. It's weird because, a few seasons ago when we were doing this record or the schedule prediction, and which we won't be doing tonight, we'll just be doing what we think kind of what the record will be. But the more in-depth record prediction will be later when the season is about to start. But a few years ago, T, I said, when we were talking about the schedule, we had time to let this schedule marinate. The Eagles come out with a post this season saying, let's let it marinate. I'm just saying they're getting ideas from us, T. That's right. What I'm thinking. And when we dive into it, they start the season off in New England at 4:25. Sunday, September 10th, first game of the season. That'll be the Tom Brady dedicated game for New England at their home opener. What do we think, T? We think that's going to be without getting too in depth in it, what do you think, win or loss?
I think that's a win, even though, supposedly a lot of people have been like, oh, that's the Tom Brady game. Tom Brady's going to be coming back. Just like,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
Patriots aren't that good. So, like, what that doesn't inspire me either. Like, there would be a bunch of players that didn't play for Tom Brady are going to all of a sudden rise up for Tom Brady. I don't think so. That's a dub.
Yeah, listen, and I do want to say I did want to think that the Eagles, just in terms of projecting how this season is going to end out, that they would lose a game like this and have people say, see, last season was a fluke. They lost the Super Bowl. Now they're never going to get back. But Patriots just aren't that great of a team. They have question marks on Mac Jones as well. They were trying to maybe feel out the market for him a month ago or so. But then their next game is a night game. It's at home, primetime game. It'll be on Prime Video against the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings. I think that the Eagles, looking ahead to that next game against the Buccaneers, I think one of these two games are going to be a loss, and I think just in Eagles fashion, they can't go 3-0 and have people talking about an undefeated season again. So I think they're going to go lose. They're going to spoil their own home opener, and they're going to bounce back, and they're going to beat the Buccaneers, and they're going to beat the Washington football team and the Los Angeles Rams, and then they're going to lose to the Jets. So I think they're going to be, what is that, 3-2 by the time that they see Miami, and then they're gonna beat Miami. It's gonna be a Tua and Jalen Hurts rematch. They're gonna be 4-2. I think they're gonna beat Washington again. I think they're gonna sweep Washington, and they're gonna lose to the Cowboys. And their record by the bye week should be, what am I saying here? They should lose. They would have lost 3 games by then. Maybe they would be 5-3, I think, by then. What are you thinking, T?
I'm thinking, okay, so I'm thinking a little bit more positive because I understand that you say you don't see them going 3-0 and then talking about undefeated season again.
Fair enough.
I think it's the complete opposite. All right, but you're talking about the Minnesota Vikings coming to Philadelphia on Thursday night. You're talking about Kirk Cousins on prime time. Those are two things that just don't work out for Kirk Cousins. That's a dub. Tampa Bay Bucks, Monday Night Football. The Bucks aren't the same team like they used to be. Their quarterback is Baker Mayfield currently. Think about that for a minute. Baker Mayfield, the defense wrestler. Anyway, so now we're talking about going the Washington Commanders coming to Philadelphia. They don't even have a quarterback. Who's their quarterback? That's
certainly not Carson Wentz.
All right, exactly. Anybody they find is better than Carson Wentz. The Rams, it may be iffy. It depends on whether or not Matthew Stafford is playing or not. It depends on where the Rams are at. The Rams are kind of sort of a team in decline. I still think they're a little bit of a threat in the NFC, especially when they're, the game's in Los Angeles. So, in SoFi Stadium. So, okay. That may be a loss. New York Jets, that's going to be a toss-up with Aaron Rodgers.
Turned out to be a great team this season. Yeah. I'm excited to be watching them.
Yes. Is Aaron Rodgers going to find a resurgence, with the New York Jets? Is he finally going to look like the MVP that he looked like a couple years ago?
He doesn't have to, though. I don't think he has to. The weapons he has.
That's true. This is very true as well. Then we're talking about the Miami Dolphins coming to Philadelphia now. This is a Miami team that's without, and remember, Tyreek Hill retired. So that speed threat on the outside, now they only have one weapon in Jason Waddle. And that's a bit of a damper. Also, Tua Tagovailoa, he's not necessarily in the greatest of health. So, that's a game to kind of keep an eye on and watch. And then we're going to Washington, which, I have no respect for the Commanders whatsoever. Then the bye comes. Now we're talking about Dallas. All right, I always say they're going to split with Dallas. See, here's where the hard part of the schedule comes in. I always feel like the Eagles every year is going to split with Dallas every year. Kansas, all right. So so at least I'll count that as a loss. The first Dallas loss.
Well,
Eagles at Kansas
last year they won the first game
they
and
did.
they lose. Also, I just want to say Tyreek Hill did not retire. He said he planned on retiring when his contract is up.
I think that's after
the
this year.
Dolphins.
Yeah, I think his contract is up this year.
Yeah. So, and also I apparently can't count because I'm 6-3 with my right here by the bye week. That should be 6-3.
All right, I got at least got 2 losses. So 2 losses so far, counting the Kansas City Chiefs. Buffalo Bills at Philadelphia Eagles. This is going to be a difficult game.
Wait, so do you have them losing at the Chiefs?
Yes, okay. That's a definite loss. Playing in Arrowhead, this is still Patrick freaking Mahomes.
Okay.
Buffalo Bills. You know what?
It's a tough schedule, too. It's when you're talking about the Chiefs, the Bills, the Niners, the Cowboys.
That second half of the schedule is just brutal. It truly is. Buffalo Bills, that's a toss-up, but you can honestly say that's an L. You wouldn't necessarily be mad at. Now, San Francisco, damn it, I want that to win. But damn it, San Francisco needs to be a dub. I'm so sick and tired of San Francisco fans, the players, even Kyle Shanahan's getting in on a freaking crying. I'm so sick and tired of those fans.
Hargrave.
Some of the most baby shit fans I've ever come across in my life. Yeah. I kid you not. Who had to get that off my chest? All right, now the Eagles going to Dallas. I already said they split with the Cowboys. Eagles at Seattle. Good Lord. Even though I have a little bit of respect, but not as much respect for Geno Smith, that Seahawks team is still difficult to play, even on the West Coast. I might have to count that as an L. I just might have to count that as an L. That's 4 L's I got so far.
In Seattle?
Yeah, that's in Seattle.
Man. Let's see. I think that the Eagles do beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead. I do. I think that they're just so motivated. Jalen Hurts especially will be so motivated to show out. That game's going to be on ESPN, ABC. It's the prime time. I think they beat the Bills too, T. I think that the Eagles. I think this year will be different, T. I think that the Eagles have the talent to not just, of course they're going to lose to, these good teams because, they're the Eagles are one of the better teams in the NFL now, T. We got to start thinking that way. I agree. Think they'll make this game competitive with the Chiefs, and I think they'll win. And okay, maybe they lose. I backtrack maybe a little bit. I think that they'll go 7-3 after a win against the Chiefs. 7-4, they'll lose to the Bills. I changed my mind. And then this San Francisco game, I mean, they have to win it, right?
Yeah, they got to
win. 8-4. They let's see. They win 9-4 against the Cowboys. They beat the crap out of the Seahawks.
Wow.
10-4, right?
In Seattle.
Yes. Yeah. I don't care what they call their fans and stuff like that too. 10-4. They beat the Giants. Why is it always the Giants at the end of the season, like 2 games?
Because they
save the Giants for the end.
Yeah, the Giants don't mean anything in the division.
I think 11-4. The Eagles. Now, once again, math is not my strong suit, so I don't know if this is accurate at all. And I think they do beat the Cardinals 12-4, and they lose this Giants game because they just aren't playing anyone. 12-5. Am I just making up a game? Did I skip over? I don't know. Who knows?
No, you're good. You're good. That's inaccurate because that's where I got them at. I got them at 12-5 to end the season. Of course, winning the division and just dominating playoffs like they did last year. I'm just saying. Ain't got nothing.
So that's where we're standing. We're kind of in the same boat with that, but it's, what teams. That's kind of the difference for us. But later on, when it gets closer to September, we'll get into that in depth, and I'm sure there'll be changes to teams.
Oh, yeah.
New players added. But T, let's start our end the show off with a segment that I like to call "Get It Off Our Chest." Get it off our chest. And I know you got something to say, and it'll be longer than what I have to say. But mine's about the Phillies, and yours, we know what yours is about. You talked about wanting to bring it up before the show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get into, and it's a player who has my respect as a Philadelphia athlete.
All right.
He plays baseball in the city of Philadelphia, and this is Bryce Harper. Okay, a few days ago, he decided to get in an argument.
Okay.
With the Colorado Rockies.
Oh, I actually
After, this guy is just getting off Tommy John's, right? So you got to protect the elbow in this argument. He's waving his arm. They're holding him back. That wasn't my problem. Getting in the fight, whatever. That's, you're trying to make baseball a little bit more interesting. My thing is calling the Colorado Rockies a loser organization is what the lip readers were saying. He said, and then losing to that loser organization, T. You're calling a team a loser organization, and then you lose against the loser organization.
But Tanner, they won the series, though. That's the thing.
They lost the game, T. They lost that game. I don't care if they won the series. They lost that game where he called the team a loser organization. You lose to the losers, T. You can't do that. Come on, man. Had to get that off my chest.
I am pissed off.
All right, I get it. I get it. All right, I guess it's my turn, and this is something that's been really pissing me off as of lately. I hate when athletes squander the opportunity to not only set themselves up, but set their families up for a multi-generational talent for years to come. I hate when athletes squander their talent on dumb shit, and I'm going to say it exactly like that because it's dumb. Ja Morant, point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies, already got in trouble earlier in the year once for going to a strip club. I don't care what y'all do, on your free time. That's just on you. I don't care. Flashed his gun on camera proudly and got suspended, I believe, for a game. And even went on ESPN.
He was suspended longer than that. He had to go through those.
Oh, that's right.
Courses and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think officially they only gave him a game, but yeah, he was. They put him on leave for a couple of games. But I just flashed his gun. Listen, I don't have any problem with the Second Amendment. I don't. If you're in a state where you have the right to openly carry, do whatever the hell you want. I don't care. That's what the Second Amendment is for. However, if you work for a private organization and you're under contract and your contract has a morality clause in it, meaning that you can't basically do dumb shit, that you represent the shield, you represent the organization in any way, shape, form, or fashion, that includes what you put on social media, you should probably come to social media on your P's and Q's. Recently, I think it was late Saturday, early Sunday morning, Ja Morant gets shown again flashing a damn gun this time was with his friends. Now it's so crazy because in the video, his friend is recording the video. Ja Morant's in the passenger seat. Ja Morant flashes the gun like an idiot. And the friend has the right frame of mind to move the damn camera quickly. Ja Morant's so damn stupid. You just gonna flash the damn gun.
Yeah.
It's befuddling to me because honestly, Ja Morant can easily go down as the most athletic point guard to ever play in the NBA. Honestly, after Curry leaves, the argument's there that he would be the best point guard in the NBA. But
if he's still in the NBA.
Yeah, that's the thing though. If you squander the opportunity that is given to you, well, now he's on indefinite leave. And who knows how many games that's going to be come next season. Dude, you went on ESPN and you went on this and you went on this sad story about how you're going to be a better human. You took all these classes about being aware and all these things, but it did you no good. Those were just words now. You're untrustworthy. And I'm saying this mostly for future athletes. Please, for the love of God, if you're going to go into these individual leagues, NBA, NFL, NHL, MLB, hell, MLS, don't matter. Please, for the love of God, if you have the opportunity that only a few people get in this lifetime, in this world, don't squander it. Just do what you got to do. Follow the rules. Follow the rules. Set your family up. Retire with a bunch of money. Then you can do whatever you want. But while you're under contract, and this isn't just for athletics as well, but whatever company that you work for, when you work for that company, you represent that company in every way, shape, form, or fashion. That includes what goes out on social media. Be careful who you hang around. Be careful what you put out there. All right, that's it. I'm
well, I will add that in this whole situation, the problem isn't that he has a gun, because it's legal to own guns.
Right.
The problem is that he's doing stupid things with the gun.
Yes.
Like in a car, just showing off the gun, pointing it and everything. That's not okay. But, he is allowed to do what he wants in his own time.
Absolutely.
It's just that it was recorded, him acting like this, acting the same way where he was in trouble for the last time. He said he wasn't going to do stuff like that. And then you find out, we would never have known if he wasn't being recorded that he still does this stuff, unless people saw him out in the public doing this stuff. But it's the fact that you are in the NBA and you were told to stop doing this. You got punished for it, and then you continue to do it. It's just not smart. And it's dangerous when he does stuff like that, where you're thinking about his safety as well, where he's in a car flashing the gun around. We've heard situations where things go bad when stuff like that happens. Accidents happen. So that's the way I'm looking at it. Is I want him to still be in the NBA, and I want him to really take this seriously, but it just doesn't seem like he is.
You know what? And that's going to be on him if he squanders the opportunity. I just had to get that off my chest, especially to the younger kids that's gonna, that listens to us and that comes across this podcast. Take it from us. Look, just be careful what you put on social media, because it stays there forever. And at the end of the day, everything that you do represents the company that you work for. At the end of the day, period.
We're all under a microscope.
Yep. All right. Now that I got that off my chest, now let's do the closing credits. You guys missed any of this episode, you can always go to philly-experience.simplecast.com. Available on all major downloadable platforms. Any platform you can think of, we there. I'm not going to name them no more, because we're everywhere.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's too much. Just Google us. Google me, as a former announcer at one of the stations once said.
Yeah.
I hear you.
I'm embarrassed.
It's an outrage.
You're always on your back.
Always.
What? Bunch of low lifes.